Did Auburn lose its most important player to the portal in the Hugh Freeze era? And is a familiar face possibly coming back to the Plains?
In the world full of podcasts, he's the undisputed heavyweight champion of hot takes, an Auburn sports homer, master of the boog, and message board legend. Get your buttons buttoned and your hats flattened because the Top Button Podcast is about to kick off. And you don't want to miss your courtside seat. Now, here's your host, Charlie Five.
Yes, sir. We're back. It's another episode of the Top Button Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Rush, a.k.a. Charlie Five, and we're ready to get after it. Happy Thursday. The weekend is creeping in. Auburn loses a fairly significant player to the portal. We're going to talk about that. And could this be the most significant player that Auburn's lost to date under Hugh Freeze to the portal? Maybe could even argue since the portal has started. We'll talk about that in just a second. And then could Auburn be close to maybe bringing in a familiar face? I think that would be it'd be interesting if it plays out. Got some news that it may be trending in that direction. We'll talk about all that here in just a second. But before we do that, we're going to give a quick shout out to you know who, Uncle Keith's Red Sauce. Go to UncleKeith'sRedSauce.com. Use coupon code BARN30, the Barn30 to take 30% off through the end of April. If you've been on the fence and you wanted to try it, well, now you got the incentive. 30% off. Get the mild, get the spicy, get it all. If you love salsa, you want to try it with a little southern kick, this stuff's for you. If you live in the state of Alabama and you live close to a Publix, you can try it there as well. But if you don't, you got the website there to fall back on. So give it a shot. You're going to love it. Uncle Keith's Red Sauce. It's good, y'all. Auburn loses Braden Joiner to the portal. Local kid, Auburn High School. If I'm not mistaken, I believe he was committed way back when Hugh Freeze was hired. He was part of that, part of that 2023 class, I believe, which I've always called the half class. Guy that you thought, hey, it's a local kid. He's got some, he's got something to him. I think he was ranked as high as like a 4-star at times. Size he's a little bit shorter, but hey, you got a half class. You're looking to bring some, you got to get some bodies in. Definitely need some bodies on the offensive line. What could it hurt? And you gave him a shot, and he's come in and he's done everything you've asked. And surprisingly developed. I don't want to say surprisingly because that sounds bad. I'm just going to say developed into a really good, solid SEC offensive lineman. No, he's not the, top of the top. He's not probably a elite starter at an elite SEC school. But he was a solid 6th guy in the rotation, and you got to have those guys. He was a solid dude that you could put in there, and that you could depend on him to do the right things. Now, did he have the athletic ability to pull it all off every single time? No, but he's somebody you could put in there and you could trust to execute the way you want the play executed. At least manage his responsibilities. Towards the end of the year, I'm looking at his PFF. It looks like about the Missouri game. I think about that time is when we pretty much punted on the Percy Lewis experiment, which was an utter disaster, complete failure. And you moved Dylan Wade back out to left tackle. And Braden got a shot to start a lot of games. I mean, I think he started every game for the rest of the season. Had a really good game against Texas A&M. Had a really good game against Louisiana Monroe. We put that one away quick. Pretty good game against Missouri. Just overall, pretty solid guy. And he's going to take his talents and try to go see if he can, find some playing time elsewhere. I think it looks like Purdue is starting to get to some predictions. There seems to be some sort of connection there. If you think about Auburn's had some dudes go to Purdue. I think you had was it Elijah Canyon was like the first one. Then you had Jeffrey Imba, and now possibly Bradyn Joiner. I don't think, obviously, he was going to crack the starting lineup, but I think he was still going to be probably your 6th or 7th offensive lineman, which is essentially first off the bench. I think he was probably going to be, he was the backup center for most of the year, most of the spring, because Connor Lew was out and Braden Joiner was in. I think you'll probably see Dylan Senda probably take over as the backup in the backup role at center. But he was also good enough to, slide into one of the guard spots. I think Mason Murphy, if he doesn't end up winning the right tackle job, I think he'll probably be first off the bench at guard. But Braden was going to be right there. That would be a battle. So any school could say this, but you're probably a little thinner than you'd like to be on the offensive line. The front five, the first five are really, really good. Probably even could say that you got 3 tackles that could play at starter level. I still think Tyler Johnson can be a really good player, just given reps and given the opportunity. But you're pretty thin as far as, hey, if you have a couple of injuries, you're going to have to really dig deep into the bag. And it would have been nice to have Braden. It would have been nice to have Braden this year. But, hey, I get it. You're in year 3. You're trying to find playing time. If Purdue's got it, and who knows, it could be a money thing as well. Like if it's looking to make a little bit more money, what do you do when you got a backup? Like, how do you value that? How do you value a backup versus if you can go get starter money elsewhere? I get it. Great kid, great family. I got a theory. I've been really thinking about this. I think this could be the most significant portal loss in the Hugh Freeze era as far as playing time, as far as caliber of player. I've really been thinking about this. I can only think of a couple of other examples of guys that you can maybe put a little bit higher. And we'll talk about that here in just a second. But before we do that, obviously, you got to give a quick shout out to mybookie.ag. Go to mybookie.ag, use coupon code BARN for a 50% deposit bonus up to $1,000. Free play. So give them $100. They're going to give you 50 back on top. Free play. Take that free play. Go try to hit you a big parlay, hit you a big teaser, whatever you want to do there. They got all the different ways you can bet. I think you also get a $10 casino chip that you can go play with in the casino. So definitely, if you're going to get free play, you might as well take advantage of it. And then take your winnings and head over to roback.com and rack up, baby. They got everything, all the styles you can imagine. I love their polos, top button approved. Love their hoodies. The material's like a nice blanket. It's so soft. They got all kind of hats, shorts, joggers, all kind of good stuff. Check them out. Roback.com. We'll be back right after this. Yeah, I want to get y'all's opinion on this, but I think this could be the most significant loss in the portal era since Hugh Freeze has been here. Now, that could change if Walker White ends up being a really good quarterback, or Hank Brown ends up being a really good quarterback. The thing is, though, I don't think either one of them is going to start where they're going this year. Iowa brought in some D2 guy that threw for 1 billion yards. And then Baylor returns one of the better quarterbacks in the Big 12 from last year. So I guess the story's not all the way written, but up to now, I think this is probably the most significant loss in the portal yet. I mean, you lost Colton Hood last year, and Colton had a really good year at Colorado. Now, Colorado does not have the deepest roster, so he got on the field probably a little bit quicker than he would at Auburn, but he had a pretty good season. I mean, 24 total tackles, 2 interceptions. I think he played a lot of snaps. So that could be one that you could look at and say he may have been a significant loss. But that defensive back room, I guess when I'm looking at it, I'm like, how does it, they perform well, and then how did it affect Auburn's roster / depth chart, and where Colton Hood hurt really badly and he had a really good year, that defensive back room to me was still one of the stronger groups on the team last year. So it didn't like affect Auburn to the point where it hindered them the following season. Braden may fall in the same category. It may not mean anything to Auburn's team this year, but he is probably, again, backup center, probably 6th or 7th offensive lineman off the bench. That's going to make things a little bit tricky. You're going to have to go replace him. You're going to have to go replace him in the portal for sure. I think that's pretty close. I think that's pretty accurate. Definitely of the Hugh Freeze era, maybe of the portal era. Another guy, I mean, this goes way back, but Lee Hunter, this was obvious. This was also before Hugh, I think. Or maybe, yeah, this is before Hugh as well. Lee Hunter actually signed under Gus. Maybe he was that half class. I think he was that half class with Harsin. He stuck with Harsin and then left and ended up being a really good interior defensive lineman, like bona fide starter interior defensive lineman. Let's just say this. He'd probably be starting at Auburn if he was still here. That was so far back, though. I mean, that's a couple of coaches ago. Maybe you could throw him in there. Who do you think's the most significant loss? I think Malcolm Johnson Jr. had a pretty good year at Bowling Green, but that's another one. I don't know how much he would have played this season, if at all. Braden's going to be one that we're going to miss, I think. I think we could get in a situation. I mean, it's a grind. Could get in a situation to where that one could be an issue. I don't know. I think highly of the kid. I wish him well. Hope he does really, really well at Purdue or wherever he goes. But let me know in the comments, who's the biggest portal loss? Which one hurts your feelings the most? I know a lot of people are going to go with the quarterbacks from last season, and I get it. I do think our quarterback room's better this year than it was last year, but I understand a lot of people were attached to Hank. A lot of people were attached to Walker White. Which one, not just of those two quarterbacks, but which player in general hurt your feelings the most that went in the portal? Auburn's done, knock on wood, Auburn's done really well if you really think about it as far as retention goes. Think about even, Alabama. I know there was a coaching change, so it's understandable, but losing like a Caleb Downs, they've lost some big-time kids. Georgia lost their starting quarterback. Boy, that's a funny story. Chase your girlfriend down to Miami, and I think, didn't they break up? It's rough. But I think he got a fat bag while he went, so who cares? He's throwing money bags in the air in South Beach. But, yeah, I mean, all these teams have lost some pretty blockbuster guys. Tennessee with their starting quarterback. Auburn's done pretty well. Haven't really had an issue yet losing starter level guys. So let me know which one hurts your feelings the most. Let me know which one you think was the biggest loss. I think there's an argument that Braden could be one of the more significant losses in the portal area. A familiar face possibly coming back to town. Everybody remembers back in 1986 when Jay Hardy signed with Auburn. So it seems like it was that long ago. No, he actually signed in 2020. He actually signed with Gus. He was in part of that 2020 class. Everybody was fired up about Jay Hardy. Remember Jay Hardy? That was a crazy story. He signed with Auburn in the early period, if I'm not mistaken. I'm going to try to get this story right, okay? He signed with Auburn in the early period, but he didn't want anyone to know about it. So he said, I'll sign, but y'all can't announce it or put it out, okay? Because I want to have an announcement, I guess, on the real signing day. It was something along those lines. Well, this was when Jeremy Pruitt, if I'm not mistaken, was at Tennessee, and Jay Hardy was from Tennessee. And hey, if you're not signed, I'm going to still recruit you up until the end. The problem with that is if you go visit a kid that's signed elsewhere, it's a recruiting violation. So Jay Hardy played basketball, if I'm not mistaken, and Jeremy Pruitt and those guys were showing up at his basketball games, and that's a recruiting violation. But among all the violations that they committed, this one was not intentional. It's so funny because now everything they did is completely legal. But yeah, so then I think it had to like come out that he was signed, and Auburn fans were really worried that he was going to flip because his signature was not announced, but then it got announced. It was crazy. So we were really excited when he got here, and he was gone almost as fast as he came in. He goes to Liberty and has had a pretty solid year, pretty solid couple of years at Liberty. Had a really good year in 2023. I honestly thought after 2023, or I thought he would come with Hugh. I really did. I thought that would probably be a guy that he brought with him, but he didn't. And then the next year, I thought for sure this is when Jay Hardy's going to come. He had a really good year in 2023. Last year, he battled some injuries. He's in the portal. I don't think. What are you looking for? What have we talked about? What has Hugh in particular said you're looking for? You never turn down a good interior defensive lineman, even if it's somebody that's not going to be a 100% starter. Jay Hardy, 6'3", 310. He fits that mold of those interior guys that Auburn needs to have more bodies of. If you really think about it, you got 3 guys with experience, and then you got a bunch of freshmen. Not even a bunch. You got a couple of freshmen. You get you another 6'3", 310-pound guy in there to get in the mix. You don't necessarily need him to be a starter. Just need him to help not have such a huge drop-off whenever you got to have guys take a break. Whenever those big boys get gassed. So sometimes you got to let them rest. You got to pull them off. So, yeah. I think he could be coming. There was some Pete Nakos, I believe, from On3. He said to look out for Auburn in this one. And it makes a ton of sense. Makes a ton of sense for him to end up at Auburn. So I think that would be fun. That'd be a fun story. That'd be a really fun story if he ended up back. Would that be the first one? I think we've tried it a couple of times. Getting guys that have left to come back, and you think about Jeffrey Imba. It'd be funny. Be a cool story. He ended his career where he started. No fault to him. He kind of came in a very tumultuous. Boy, I struggle with that one. Tumultuous time. Why do I pick these words? It'd be kind of fun for him to come back and finish here. How he still has that eligibility is crazy to me. Him and Jeremiah Wright, those guys they've hung in there. They've battled through a lot. So it'd be kind of cool to get him back. There's not a ton of there's not really a ton of noise yet on who Auburn might add to this roster. You've lost a few, so you know you're going to have to replace those scholarships, try to get those guys in. Haven't been a ton of names really associated with Auburn. This is one that has, and maybe it happens here soon. So we'll see what happens. Ton of portal stuff, football and basketball to pay attention to. And we're going to have Friendship Friday tomorrow. So be on the lookout for that. The first 4 have been incredible. Look, a lot of people are like, are you screening these folks at all? Absolutely not. We're just going in completely blind. And every one of them have been awesome so far. If you want to be a part of it, all you got to do is subscribe to thebarnauburn.com, get in line. We're booked all the way through June, but hey, it'll be here before you know it. We'll have version 5 tomorrow. I'm excited. Always excited to talk to our members, and they all bring a lot to the table. So let me know what you think about all this in the comments. I love interacting in the comments. I pretty much respond to every single one. We'll try to keep it up, guys. We're going to be back again tomorrow. If you like the video, like it. If you like the channel, subscribe to it. We'll talk again soon. It's another episode of the Top Button Podcast. Stay buttoned.
Thanks for listening, and drive home safely.